Live from Washington, D.C., Jay Sekulow Live. Phone lines are open for your questions right now. And now, Chief Counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice, Jay Sekulow.
We start the week off with some major news. 4 major takeaways from a Senator Johnson's letter regarding the FBI. Now, let me tell you what's happened here. There are email or text message exchanges between Peter Strzok, you remember this, part of the Mueller's, he was part of the investigative team for Bob Mueller. Then you had Lisa Page, was one of the lawyers for Bob Mueller. They had a series of text messages exchanges both while they were on the case and then before. So from December 4th, 2016 until May 17th, 2017, the day that Bob Mueller was appointed, the text message exchanges between December 14th, 2016 and May 17th, 2017, which includes the date when James Comey was fired, but May 17th, 2017, those text messages are missing. Guess what happened on May 17th? Robert Mueller was appointed by Rod Rosenstein to be the special counsel. Call it coincidence. Call it whatever you'd like. Sound familiar? Lois Lerner, missing emails. Hillary Clinton, missing emails. What is it with the FBI and not being able to keep evidence? That's how I start this conversation. And frankly, to me, of course, a full investigation needs to be going on. But when we go into the particulars on this, Jordan, of what they actually have said that they released is also very, very troubling, including litigation we have on that tarmac exchange between Loretta Lynch and Hillary Clinton.
That's right. And about Loretta Lynch specifically saying, she basically said, I'll just take the advice from the FBI director. She didn't recuse herself, but said if the FBI director wants to prosecute, we'll prosecute. If not, I'll take his advice. And they said, when she knows there's not going to be any charges filed. It's really easy to do so.
Right.
Yes. So that's in there. Of course, let's remember, these are the individuals who talked about that secret plan in, quote, Andy's office. That's Andy the number McCabe. 2 at the FBI, still there as deputy director. Remember, Peter Strzok's still there. Got Rios was kicked out of the Mueller team.
But it's still an FBI
But he's
agent.
still an FBI agent. He's in as of last reporting, he's in human resources. And Lisa Page is still either at DOJ, FBI. She was also briefly on the Mueller team. So he was dismissed.
Yep.
But we are talking about, like with Lois Lerner, the day the request comes in from Ways and Means Committee in her case, the hard drive's been destroyed. These are text messages, so it's not a hard drive issue. In fact, with the cloud and everything else, are we really going to believe that our FBI is so inept that they have nowhere else to go but what? The actual systems themselves, they don't need a warrant. This is their property. This is government property, not private property.
I'm going to say something very clear here. I hate to say this, but I really believe this is the case. We have seen a pattern in practice. When there are key evidentiary points and key timelines, why is it that the Department of Justice, the Department of the Treasury, the FBI loses, supposedly, or can't retrieve critical evidence? Critical evidence. These folks were leading the investigation of the president. And 5 months missing? And it just happens to coincide with December of 2016, when the whole situation with General Flynn started, and then ends the day that Bob Mueller is appointed? You figure that out. We've got a lot more ahead on this whole situation of not only government transparency, but what looks like the willful destruction of evidence. Not exactly what the founders envisioned with our constitutional republic. Back with more in a moment. Now we know the fix was in during the investigation. How do we know it? More documents. They recovered, by the way, the Inspector General has recovered the missing emails or text messages between Strzok and Page. But they're now starting to be released. One of them involves a very, very important issue, and that is the interview of the former Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton. Now, I have been very critical, as you know, of the Department of Justice and the FBI. It was really more focused on James Comey during the entire election last year. I didn't think it was right for him to raise the issue of the Clinton investigation when you were just months out from election. I didn't think that was fair to anybody. I said that. I was critical when he reopened it because I didn't, which was like weeks before the election, and then he closed it again. None of that. The FBI should not have been doing it. James Comey usurped the authority of the Attorney General, and Hillary Clinton, in her book, says that that's the reason she lost the election. Now, I'm not going to. I don't think that's the reason she lost the election, but I'm going to say this: what James Comey did was inappropriate, and I think violated the internal operating rules of the Department of Justice within the Department of Justice manual, because the FBI director is not supposed to be the Attorney General. He usurped that authority. And he's saying, well, he thought that Loretta Lynch was compromised because of the conversation she had between then former President Clinton and the Attorney General Lynch on the tarmac in Phoenix. And I agree, she was compromised and should have recused herself from that, but that would have put the deputy in charge. So it didn't give the authority for the FBI director to do it. But now we know this entire investigation was nonsense from the outset. And this is from Page to Strzok in a text message exchanged in a February 25th, 2016 text exchange between Strzok and Page during the Clinton investigation. Page warned Strzok about how to deal with Secretary Clinton. And apparently senior FBI officials agreed. This is Page Strzok. One more thing. She might be our next president. The last thing you need, us going in there loaded for bear. You think she's going to remember or care that this was more DOJ than FBI? Strzok then to Page. Agreed. I called Bill. Bill is Bill Priestap. He's the FBI Director of Counterintelligence, and relayed what we discussed. He agrees. I will email you, and then there's a redaction, the same. Here's what this means. They intentionally decide, remember who did the interview of Hillary Clinton was Peter Strzok.
Yeah, it was FBI.
Yeah, FBI
I don't think
did the interview. That's how it works. So he's getting warned by Lisa Page, a lawyer with either FBI or DOJ at that point, was kind of going back and forth, and is told, be careful what you say to her. She could be president, but also that the FBI officials agreed.
Yeah, and the optics of how many agents you're going to put in, how many potential DOJ people. I mean, it is, this again shows you this was the special, and they were treating this investigation different than everyone else. And obviously now they wanted to make sure that if Hillary Clinton became the next president, which in all likelihood from their other texts about President Trump is what they wanted, that they would still be in her good graces. So do you expect that there was any justice done there? They were just trying to figure out how nice they could be during the interview of Hillary Clinton, not the least of which what they'd actually do about Hillary Clinton. Yep. And Strzok is the one who made sure nothing in Comey's statement sounded criminal.
Than, first of all, let's get some reaction of what's happening up in the nation's capital right now on this.
Well, I think there's a clear double standard, and I think it's very clear. I mean, look, these are the agents that had to go in and interview Hillary Clinton. And by the way, it's not just them. They're talking with their boss, Bill Priestap, and they all agree that for at least Peter Strzok's career, they are going to take it easy on Hillary Clinton, because once she is President Clinton, she might not reflect back kindly on this interview if they go in, quote, loading for bear. That's their words, not mine. So in other words, Jay, they are not pursuing a factual conclusion. They are just trying to survive this interview without falling out of the good graces of who they think the next president is going to be. That's not how the FBI is supposed to operate.
Absolutely not. All right, let's go ahead and take some calls, Logan, and we'll get some comments, and we've got a whole nother topic on this, and we've got a lot to cover here. All right, Logan.
All right, let's go to Gene, who's calling on line 2 in Arizona. You're on the
Gene.
air.
Hi. Yes, I was going to ask, in lieu of the current information that we have now regarding all these texts and so forth, is it possible to bring Hillary Clinton back in under oath and put her through questioning? And also, I just want to please ask to do not let the president get in that room with Mueller. I love him, but
yeah. Well, let me address the question about whether Hillary Clinton could be brought before Congress. She was not brought before Congress. Congress, could exercise authority. Here's what I'm telling you on this. It's not, to me, it's not so much what happens to the former Secretary of State. I think the point we're trying to make here is the issue of what was taking place in these investigations that's inappropriate. Like I said at the beginning of the broadcast, the whole James Comey routine was inappropriate, whether you're Republican, Democrat, or Independent. And then now all this going back and forth is inappropriate as the investigators. Go ahead, Jordan.
I said this during our break to our Facebook and Periscope audience, but just remember, Peter Strzok, and we're reading his text messages back and forth with Lisa Page, said about the Russia investigation and specifically into President Trump There is no there. But
That's why he was not going to go into the investigation.
But maybe I should join that special counsel's team because he was already the lead FBI investigator, so that I can make good on what I messed up with the Clinton investigation. That there was there, but we didn't push down the there enough. It hurt her too bad still politically. That's what he is saying. So
they call that an MYE, mid-year exam.
There's no there, from his own words, the head FBI investigator into the Russia collusion and President Trump, no there. And then when it came to Hillary Clinton, it was a lot of there. Let's make sure we go in with soft gloves and it doesn't hurt her too much politically because they wanted her to be president of the United States. That's clear because of what they were saying back and forth to each other about the future president, now President Trump. Horrendous about the president of the United States. And these are government agents using government phones to call the president bad names and demeaning names. So it's clear what the purpose was. It wasn't just again they did bad on one and they wanted to do better on another. It was because they wanted to treat things differently, make up things that weren't there when it comes to President Trump, make it up, try to damage him, try to help Hillary Clinton when there was a lot there.
Richard has a comment like the deep state is our biggest threat right now, and comments like that aren't coming in. Pat just said what a tangled web of deceit. And then Nancy, of course, asked the question that everyone asks: how long? A lot of people ask, how are we going to have justice? She said, how long is it going to take?
A long time.
Yeah.
I'm just going to, look, the IRS case took us 3 years. We got justice, but it took 3 years to get it. These don't happen quickly. I will tell you that we've got an email out today to our members, and I found this interesting. There was this whole text message exchange between Strzok and Page about the secret society, and they met in Andy's office and the insurance policy, and then CNN was saying last night, well, no, they've admitted that's not true, and that was based on because friends of Strzok and Page may have said it was a joke. None of this is funny, okay? Here's what you have. Justice does not happen overnight, and you have to understand that there's a process. And these agencies, you call it, you don't have to dig so deep, by the way, to find this. So there's another exchange here that I think is equally important and shows you why we do these FOIA cases, Freedom of Information Act cases. How about this one? Peter Strzok on September 10th, 2016. This is during the heart of the election last year. Thing is, there are very inflammatory things in the 302s. That's the agent's reports that we didn't turn over to Congress because they weren't relevant to understanding the focus of the investigation. And this was the investigation of Hillary Clinton, the ongoing email investigation. That's what they're talking about there. These are going to come out in FOIAs and absolutely inflame Congress. I'm sure Jim and Tricia and Dave and Mike are all considering how things like that play out as they talk amongst themselves. In other words, once the FOIA requests come in and they are responded to, it's going to create a firestorm. Now, understand something. We get a lot of information out of these FOIA requests on a whole host of topics, State Department, whatever it might be. In fact, we were planning on talking about that today on the broadcast involving Israel and the Palestinian Authority. Hopefully we'll get to that on Monday. But here's the reality, and I think this is important for you to understand. They are aware of these. They're aware of these FOIA issues, and internally they know that can be a problem. So, Than, let me go to you. Here they're shielding it from Congress.
Oh, absolutely. And they are admitting, Jay, to shielding it from Congress. They are admitting that eventually when outside organizations like ours engage in FOIA practice, they will eventually have to turn them over. And many of those 302s are now in the possession of Congress, Jay. And I will tell you this, it's slightly unrelated, but I'll bet you some of those 302s are what underpin that 4-page memo we've talked about at the House Intelligence Committee. But here's the underlying point. This is why we always tell people Congress has to push on the investigatory side, but we also have to engage in FOIAs because one pressures the other, and eventually those puzzle pieces put together. But, Jay, this is 2 FBI agents admitting that they were stonewalling Congress.
By the way, as we said, they amazingly found the documents.
Yep.
Amazingly. By the way, in the IRS case, they amazingly found those too. It took 2 years there. This was pretty quick.
Yeah.
Remember, it was a system-wide outage, they said, and it was 5 months, and it was all gone, and they couldn't recover.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, when the pressure comes, Logan, they amazingly find
Well,
it.
that's what Sharon said. It's amazing texts recovered so quickly, where they even actually lost. And that's what we're saying is that means they didn't do like two more days of work to find them. I mean, that's the weird part about this. Not the weird part, but it's funny. It's like it legit was 2 days, 3 days from when they announced we don't have them to, we found them. If we had gotten this report 3 days later, no controversy. I mean, there'd be controversy.
What was in it,
What was
but
in
not
it,
the
but
hiding.
not this part.
So it looks like they're hiding the ball.
So either it's laziness or they're hiding something.
Yeah. All right. Do we have time for a call? Do you want to do that after the break? What do you think?
We can take a quick call.
All right.
Let's go to Kristen. She's got a good quick comment in Colorado.
Okay. Hey, Kristen.
Yes, hello.
Yep.
First, I want to say thank you for all you do
Thanks.
and are doing. Keep up the good work.
We'll do it.
Secondly, I would like to know why are all these people still employed in any capacity at the FBI and DOJ? Why have they not been let go?
Well, there's one issue here. They're bureaucrats. And when you fire bureaucrats who are up for pensions, Andrew McCabe is one of those individuals, he's on this path to, I think it's just a few months. He's already announced his retirement. But even going down to the Peter Strzok's, they are going to fight back aggressively because they cannot just be fired. They don't serve at the pleasure of the president. They serve the federal government. They can be fired by the president. But if these are folks who again are almost have done their full 20 years,
technically under Article 2, they do serve at the pleasure of the president, but there's a whole system in place of how you get the pensions and retirement. Right.
They fight back over their pension.
Oh, sure.
So if they fight back over their pension, you end up in court. Who do you end up in court against? Well, then you've made yourself liable potentially for people trying to depose the president of the United States on why they're. I mean, seriously. This is really one of the problems with how the bureaucrats have entrenched themselves in Washington. They've basically told presidents, yeah, you can try to fire me, then I'll take you to court and try to find out why. And that puts these presidents, attorney generals, executive branch members who are political appointees in a very dangerous and a bad position.
We've got a lot more ahead on this whole situation of not only government transparency, but what looks like the willful destruction of evidence. Not exactly what the founders envisioned with our constitutional republic. Back with more in a moment. All right, last segment here. Will brought out a very good point. Let me play something for you from Trey Gowdy last year with James Comey. Take a listen.
What concerns me, Director, is when you have 5 immunity agreements and no prosecution, when you are allowing witnesses who happen to be lawyers, who happen to be targets, to sit in on an interview. That is not the FBI that I used to work with. It's really important to me that the FBI be respected. You got to help us understand, because it looks to me like some things were done differently that I don't recall being done back when I used to work with them.
I hope someday when this political craziness is over, you will look back again on this, because this is the FBI you know and love. This was done by pros in the right way. That's the part I have no patience for.
Yeah, really? Well, let me read you Peter Strzok, your pro that was doing this. Thing is, there are very inflammatory things in the 302s. We didn't turn these over to Congress because they weren't relevant to understanding the focus of the investigation that are going to come out in the FOIA and absolutely inflame Congress. That's what was going on. Let's go ahead. It's our last segment, so we take phone calls. Logan, let's go ahead and do it.
Yep, Pat in Florida, line 5. You're on the air.
Hey, Pat, go ahead. You're on the air.
Hey, Jay, thank you for everything you do. You guys do a great job.
Thanks.
One quick thing, a quick statement, and then a question.
Yep.
We're being stonewalled. We lose memos. Nobody shows up to testify. Can the statute of limitations come into play here at all?
Well, the statute of limitations comes into play if there's a criminal action brought. You've got so many years to bring it. So these are, the Department of Justice has said they've opened up some investigations. We don't know the scope and nature of those. So I don't think you have a statute of limitation problem as to these matters. And the question is here, look, politically, if an FBI agent holds a political view, it's one that they're allowed to, on anything. I mean, they can have a political view. They can share their political view. But they shouldn't be the agent on that case if the person they're investigating is the target of their Federal Bureau of Investigation issue. If it was Hillary Clinton's situation, she was the subject or target or whatever. Of course, they haven't called it an investigation. They called it a MYE mid-year exam. And then Loretta Lynch wanted it to be called a matter. So, again, all that does come into play in that context, but this is in the beginning stages of all of this. We got to keep hitting as many calls as we can here.
Yep, let's go to Chris in St. Louis on line 6. Chris,
hey, Chris.
You're on the air.
Hey, guys. Glad to be able to be on here with you guys. Stroke and Page and all those people, you said earlier there was a comment about being fearful as to whether any of this evidence was tampered with before we heard any of it. And what do they actually have to fear? Because Comey and Clapper, obviously this last time you said you got Clapper on there, all these guys are lying under oath. And why aren't these guys being brought up for charges?
Well,
and when Flynn,
let's talk to. I think Chris, it's good to focus on. You can go to the past. I think Jim Comey is still very relevant to today, especially. I'm not sure how much Clapper he was doing interviews, and there were some under oath. But let's go to Comey. He's actually still very relevant. But specifically, let's go to Lisa Page and Strzok, who are still in the government, right? Bruce Orr, and who's still in the government, and so they're still getting paid by the U.S. government. I think they're the most liable, ultimately, for potential criminal investigation that by the Department of Justice. But you know what it takes, Chris? A Department of Justice and an FBI that would actually go after their own for criminal wrongdoing. And we have not seen history of that. The only time these agents, Dad, they ever get in trouble, or DOJ officials get in trouble criminally, is when it involves money. When it involves money, they actually do prosecute. So I give them that, because I don't want anybody to say, well, yes, they do prosecute their own. When it involves money, crimes of fraud and money and defrauding the government monetarily, yes, because they can't get away with not doing that. But here they sparse everything, and they're just joking, and they can have views, and they can do this, and they protect their own. And let me tell you, folks, it is not a Republican versus Democrat issue. It really is a Washington versus Donald Trump issue. Okay?
Or is it a James Comey versus Donald Trump issue? You wonder about that,
too. Plenty of these people are